welcome to 6.0 Minutes. This is your host, Chase Zernish, local historian and professor of American literature and history. Today, the interview we will conduct will be an in-depth analysis of Coleman Miller's new novel, The Study of America. His new novel touches upon the resistance to the expectations of society, the result of individual progress that can later translate to larger movement from an idea. In the studio, intern reporter Anthony Zortzis will learn from the guru of historical and literary American history. Now, over to you, Anthony.
Welcome, Coleman. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
The pleasure is all yours.
Coleman, would you care to give us an overview of your book?
Well, truly, it's not that simple. I can begin with explaining the process of understanding what it is truly about. May I ask you, Anthony, where are you studying?
Kent State University, sir.
Shameful. However, there's a great deal of history surrounding your university. In the years of the Vietnam War, protest at many universities was growing because of unrest regarding the policies of the war. Students at Kent State University were in opposition to the war for many reasons, until 4 students were shot and killed by the National Guard troops at the protest. Some saw the war as unnecessary, bloodshed, while others were opposed to the Cambodian invasion that grew in the 1970s.
Yes, there were many Americans opposed to that war. However, the majority of America was in support of the troops fighting the Vietnamese.
Yes, Anthony, not bad for an intern. Students were enrolled in universities exempt from service until Congress passed a 2-year extension to the draft. Starting in 1971, college students were no longer exempt from military service. The students' protests at Kent State would be part of the anti-war movement in the United States that sought to end the Vietnam War. The anti-war movement did not begin to end until President Nixon ended the draft in 1973.
That is particularly intriguing, but please do tell me how these events have contributed to your novel.
The inspiration I gained here is that the empowerment of American youth to rise together and unify toward a common goal, peace. The success is not in their results of their protest, but instead in the manner of their resistance, in which they thought to better their lives by opposing the majority, by opposing society.
How does American government fit into this equation?
The American government was the opposition of the students, and the massacre of students at Kent State was a tragedy that fell into the government's hands.
A very unique perspective. Thank you.
A very intellectual perspective. I would now like to reflect upon a literary inspiration that I found essential in writing my novel. The book was The Awakening by Kate Chopin. The Awakening shows individual protest against society that demands progress in female social status.
As you wish, sir.
The protagonist, Edna, suffers from inequality of the sexes. She is a bird trapped in a cage who cannot live to her own melody due to the fact that she is caught in Creole culture. Edna's suffering is permanent, as she is affected by the guilt of her leaving her children and the responsibilities that affect her and those around her. She attempts to leave behind the life she had built up, but fails to shake the chains of restraint placed on her by a male-driven society. It is that same weight that brings Edna to death.
Your words are magic. How does Edna's struggle cause change?
Edna is the call to enact change. She represents the oppressed women who are unequal. Edna is the idea of freedom for women, and that is the idea that creates movement and spreads to change.
This is enlightening, sir.
I am well aware, my friend. My knowledge is merely a result of my education. A brilliant quote from the author states, "Every step she took toward relieving herself obligations added to her strength and expansion as an individual. She began to look with her own eyes, to see and to apprehend the deeper undercurrents of life." The author is identifying the positive effect Edna's resistance creates and the defiance that strengthens her. Kate Chopin identifies the individual strength of a character and allows the reader to identify with Edna's struggle against oppression.
You have a natural ability to find literary metaphors that connect to American struggles.
And their solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, for your in-depth explanation of your novel. It has been a great honor.
You should be very grateful for this experience.
Our next guest tonight will be a former communist and leader of the Crucible Fan Club, Noah Jensen. We are excited to hear Noah's point of view and opinions on the United States policies on communism and change, as well as their connection to his favorite play, The Crucible. Now back over to you, Anthony.
We now have Noah Jensen with us. Mr. Jensen, I'm told that you are in fact a former communist. Is that true?
Why, yes it is.
Now tell me, are you no longer a communist? What led you away from your original views?
Well, you see, I was a communist because I believed in a society that was equal, and I saw communism as a path that could help lead the U.S. there. I changed my views after I saw that communism had too much power in one place.
A wise decision. Are you familiar with the House Committee on Un-American Activities?
HUAC? Well, of course. They were the leaders of the 20th century witch hunt for communists. The Crucible is a play designed as a metaphor for the search of communists in America. By using witchcraft to personify communism, Arthur Miller creates a powerful play that sheds light on the obscene hunt for communists. He is able to represent the idea that those who fell victim to accusations were powerless against the government's reign. The power demonstrated by the judges of Salem in the Crucible is comparable of those in the communist trials in the 1950s.
Is Arthur Miller's interpretation of HUAC a protest against the United States government for overstepping that reach?
In many ways it is. It goes against American policy of the time which opposed all forms of communism. The American people turned to their government to solve their fears of communism while in the Crucible. America represents the church, and the citizens of Salem look to God for help. In the text, the fearful character Putnam speaks to his minister and says, "Now look you, sir, let you strike out against the devil, and the village will bless you for it. Come down, speak to them, pray with them. They are thirsting for your word." The church is believed to help them, while the devil is the communism of which they fear.
Did the government itself enact change and progress to improve the American government?
Yes, of course they did. Following Eisenhower's presidency, the United States geared towards creating a permanent military power. In Eisenhower's farewell address, he addresses the need to establish that, in the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. America would bring their strong industrialism and create military growth in infrastructure and technology. America established an interstate highway system that doubled as a defense system and expanded their military technology through the advancements of weaponry. By advancing their policy, America would increase their national security from foreign threats.
Would you say this policy would make progress in preventing communism?
I see America's shift in policy to be an active preserving democracy that would, in the future, continue to combat communism. By becoming a military power, America gained the resources that it might need in future wars, allowing Americans to feel secure.
It is apparent that this was in fact a monumental shift in American history. Thank you for your insight, Mr. Jensen.
It was my pleasure.
It's been an honor having both Mr. Miller and Mr. Jensen on the show today. Thank you for watching. Good night.